innovative ideas about the brain as a machine. But what he had done was to combine such a naive, mechanistic picture of the mind with the precise logic of pure mathematics.
He Dreamed of Machines, a 2012 piece by the Pet Shop Boys. It's a song about Alan Turing, the wartime Bletchley Park codebreaker who went on to become a pioneering computer scientist. A gay man at a time when homosexuality was criminalised, Turing was prosecuted for gross indecency in 1952. Last year, he was granted a posthumous royal pardon. Now, Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe are about to expand on the Turing story in an orchestral, electronic and spoken word composition called A Man for the Future, which will be given its world premiere at the BBC Proms at the end of this month. Neil and Chris, welcome back to Front Row.
Hello, nice to be here.
And you've been rehearsing all day for the Proms performance, which includes the Turing piece and then some other pieces which we'll talk about.
Yeah, it's in
as well.
3 parts. The first part is an overture that was written for our tour in 1991, Overture to Performance it's called, which was recorded and played before the audience every night, but for the first time it's going to be played live. And then the film composer Angelo Badalamenti, who's famous for doing a lot of David Lynch's films Blue Velvet, has arranged 4 of our songs, which are going to be sung by Chrissie Hynde from The Pretenders, and that's what we've been rehearsing this afternoon.
So you've been
and
here
then
all
we
day.
get the Alan Turing piece, A Man from the Future.
From the future. I said for the future,
Yes.
did I? It was From the Future. Now, of course, you're the most successful pop act, a pop duo of all time. You've sold something like 50 million records, and it's 3 decades now since West End Girls. But this is your BBC Proms debut, isn't it? First time at the Proms.
Well, I mean, we were amazed to be asked to do this at the Proms. It came about because Chris and I started writing this piece about 2.5 years ago. And we started writing it because we saw this Channel 4 docudrama about Alan Turing. It was very, very moving. And we originally thought we might write a ballet to follow up to the ballet we did at Sadler's Wells, a sort of abstract ballet based on it. But when we read the book about the biography of Alan Turing by Andrew Hodges, and it's such an amazing story, we decided that we would write a sort of narrative piece which takes key moments in the life and indeed death of Alan Turing and afterwards and turn them into a spoken stroke sung piece.
So it's like kind of a modern oratorio then, is it?
It's actually not an oratorio, though.
No.
It's difficult to compare it to anything, but it has a narrative on the section we heard there from a concert we did a couple of years ago. It's me speaking it, but actually at the Prom it's the actress Juliet Stevenson.
She's going to be narrating it.
She's going to be narrating it. The BBC Concert Orchestra is playing. The BBC Singers sing, and I sing with them. I am actually a member of the BBC Singers for this night, which is rather exciting.
Well, and I guess in a way that Andrew Hodge, because you've borrowed a lot of the lyrics from his biography, he becomes a Pet Shop Boy for this piece.
He is, and Chris, of course, is playing electronics, and Andrew Hodges, yes, so it's a Tennant Lowe Hodges composition.
Yeah.
And we started to write it, and actually we'd pretty much finished the first draft, and it suddenly occurred to us maybe we should contact the author. And astonishingly, Andrew Hodges turned out to be a Pet Shop Boys fan. He's a professor of mathematics at Wadham College, Oxford. And in fact, he'd written a book about numbers where he quotes us all the way through.
Well, that's handy,
it's an
isn't it?
astonishing coincidence.
And Chris, as Neil said there, you're going to be playing the electronics, you're going to be on the keyboards, but playing with the BBC Concert Orchestra. So how's that going to work?
Well, we have done this before. We did it up in Manchester with, was it the same orchestra or a different one?
BBC Philharmonic.
Yeah, the orchestra plays to a click, so it's all, the music's generated from the computers, and then everyone hopefully keeps in time.
And it is a fascinating story, isn't it, about Alan Turing? The fact that he was so central to the work at Bletchley in the war, and I suppose in effect helping to save so many lives in the war because he was breaking the Enigma code, and then stripped of his government clearance in 1952 when he was charged with gross indecency, and then instead of taking a prison sentence, he accepted chemical castration.
Yes, they injected him with female hormones. And then, a couple of years after that, he killed himself. It's a fascinating story. We called it A Man from the Future because, firstly, he was a huge pioneer of what we now call the computer. I mean, Alan Turing thought of in the 1930s, which is what the track He Dreamed of Machines is about. He had this idea of a universal machine. People had thought of having a machine that could solve one problem, like a calculator, for instance. People had thought of that, an adding up machine. But Alan Turing thought you could have one machine that would solve all problems, which is what, in effect, the modern computer does.
In the 1930s, so he's the father of computer programming.
Yes, so he thought of this a long time ago. And then the wartime work people know about. And then after that, he carries on working on what he calls the electronic brain. But also, the reason he's a man from the future is because he's open about his sexuality. There's a piece that refers to this called Other Ranks, where he mentions to his assistant he's a homosexual, and his assistant is absolutely appalled. And Alan Turing just behaves as though this is the most normal thing in life, as of course it is. And so again, he's way, way ahead of his time. So we sort of live in a way now, to a large extent, in an Alan Turing world.
And he was pardoned last year. He received the royal pardon
Christmas
last year.
Eve last year.
Yeah,
So
but
we
there's
exchanged the end of the
50,000
piece.
Right, and didn't you play a part in that royal pardon coming about?
No.
I heard that you had the phone number of somebody in David Cameron's office and you put in special pleading.
Well,
on
we were
his behalf.
asked to play at the Athletes' Parade the day after the Olympics had ended 2 years ago, and David Cameron's office, assistant or someone phoned up, and anyway, we had to fly back from Germany, and they arranged that. And afterwards, I texted the guy who'd set up the whole thing and said it was worth doing. And I said, I don't want to bug the Prime Minister, but could you say to the Alan Turing centenary year, which was 2012, it would be an amazing thing to do to pardon him. And his assistant, or the guy in his office, texted back and said he agreed with me, but we never heard anything else again.
Right.
And also, there was people in Parliament talking about this, which is how I really think it came about.
But I mean, he was just one of 50,000 men at the time who were convicted on the grounds just really of their sexuality. And you, I think, recently have called for all people.
Well, I was talking to a newspaper about this piece, and there's a bit, the last section of A Man from the Future is called A Man from the Future. And it mentions that Alan Turing gets the pardon, but tens of thousands of other men haven't been pardoned. So an exception's been made for Alan Turing because he's such a distinguished person. But really, logically, and morally, really,
retrospective pardons who were
everyone should be
convicted.
pardoned. I think people forget that men's lives were just routinely ruined by a policeman knocking at the door saying, "Oh, we've heard you've had sex with this man," and that's what happened to Alan Turing. And Alan Turing's life is ruined by it. And I mean, but the country and the world suffered as a result of that, because Alan Turing was doing work which scientists are only now catching up with. Towards the end of his life.
Well, let's just have a quick reminder of what people will hear in the proms. Let's just have another burst of He Dreamed of Machines. And very briefly, next year, I think, is the 30th anniversary of West End Girls being released. So the 30th anniversary of you on the pop scene. Any special plans?
Well, it's the first we've heard of that, isn't it?
You don't keep count, Chris.
We like to look forward, not back.
Well, thanks very much to Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe. The Pet Shop Boys late night prom 8 is on Wednesday, the 23rd of July at 10:15 in the evening. It'll be broadcast live on BBC Radio 3 and online, of course.